Hey there everyone, my name is Leanne, and this video is a step-by-step how I decorated this all buttercream dragon cake. I did make one with fondant horns for my dad's birthday, so I will post that later on today, but for now, let's get to the buttercream cake. So to start, I actually created a template for the eyes. Generally, I freehand everything, but for the sake of symmetry and also simplicity, I drew on a piece of paper just what I wanted the eye to look like, and I duplicated it, just folding it over so that the eyes would be the same size. If you're using fondant, this is a really great tool because you can actually cut out all the different pieces and lay them on your cake before you start putting on your scales. And because this cake is completely covered in scales, you can just do a dirty ice crumb coat. I did a kind of messy green frosting on the outside. It does not matter if you frost with a different color. I like to just cover my bases, but this will be covered all in scales, so you don't have to worry about icing too pretty underneath. Next, what I did was cut out those eyes that I made so that I can position them right on the cake. I just took a little bit of buttercream, dabbed it on there, and what this did was allow me to arrange how far apart the eyes were, at what angle. I know right now it looks kind of like a cat, but it does come alive once you put the scales on. But yeah, I like doing this so that way you can mark out where you want it, and then I start drawing. I like to mark out the center of the nose, the cheekbones, and then I also add in where I'm going to put the eyebrows. And these are all going to be covered with scales, and I'll show you that right after this. So after you mark out those few lines, I do trace over my eyes. If you had fondant, you could just indent your fondant and do it that way. But mine, I just like to kind of get a general idea of where I'm putting the eyes. And now it just comes down to layering. I start with black, because that'll be the background. And always keep a photo reference close to you. I do have a photo of a previous cake that I did that has the similar eye, and that really helps me refer back to how to layer the different things of buttercream. So you just apply a really thin layer of buttercream, and right now we're just building up the shapes. For my dad's cake, I actually used yellow for the eyes, and this one I thought I'd have some fun with it and use some purple. You can use any colors you like. If you want more of that dinosaur feel, I would definitely go with a yellow. Red looks really cool as well. What's cool is you can kind of just make it your own. Next, this is what I like to call the Scribble Method. It's just an iris. What's cool about these cakes is you should just have fun with them. Don't be too critical. You can do lines. Just look up a picture of an eye that you really like. You could actually make it darker on the outside, lighter on the inside, or vice versa. You're giving it life. Have fun. I actually really liked how the purple looked on top of the black, and I wish I didn't add the pink so big. You'll see next I outline the eyes, but yeah, no, don't be too critical on your stuff. It's a learning experience every time. So next I just outline the eyes. I started on the bottom and then the top. The reason behind that, I feel like it cleans up the ends of your piping a little bit, but because we're putting scales, it's actually not that big of a deal. So when I do start putting scales on the face, I like to start underneath the eyes. This just gives me a good basis for general shape of the face. I really like, if you look at a picture of a dinosaur or some Jurassic Park stuff, you'll see that they have a lot of different sizes for the scales. So the face is really fun. I like to add a few different sizes. I'll start with really small scales underneath the eyes, and then I generally get bigger going towards the eyebrow and underneath. So I did add some bigger scales going down from the cheekbones. At this point, it's kind of hard to get it completely even, but I try to get as close as possible to make it symmetrical on both sides. Now, it's kind of hard to see because my hand's in the way, but I'm using those guidelines I made just to add scales up the center of his face. I kind of do them sporadically and just tried to shape them as a backdrop. That way when I add the eyebrows, they just fade into the background. So don't be too critical. This can be just a really simple pearl technique. Yeah, you're just doing poofs all over the place. Once you get the general shape down of the face, I just start filling in everywhere. The eyebrows are a big component, so right around the eyes, you'll get like that eyelid effect, and then fill in everywhere, and then add the eyebrows on top. Also, the reason I drew a solid line for the eyebrows to start off with is because I like them to be a little bit more raised than the back of the face and those scales. And so what that does, it just adds a different dimension. Once we airbrush it, it'll kind of highlight it a little bit better. And then I kind of did some squiggly long eyebrows on top, and this allowed it just to have a different texture and make the eyebrows really stand out. Made it look like a different kind of scale. Looking sinister. Then the rest is just kind of filling in. If you ever made a pearl border or beaded border on a cake before, it's a pretty simple technique. I use it a lot when I do the scaled mermaid cakes with the different ombre. It's just a cute little trick. You can use it for fish, for dragons. This one in particular, I kind of filled in, blocked in a lot of it just using that technique, and then I went over the big blotches where my cheekbones were. And I just kind of did that swirly effect that I used for the eyebrows. And I want you guys to notice here that I am not following any sort of pattern whatsoever. I'm kind of just filling in. Sometimes you just want to have fun with a cake and it doesn't have to be too mechanical. I think it looks good either way, so I kind of just randomly added them in and cleaned up my borders. And then as far as the top goes, I kind of just wanted to make sure that it all blended together. So I just made sure I had a strong lead in from the face to the top of the cake. So I pointed the beads towards the forehead, and then I kind of just went around with more beads on the top just to cover up all of my scales. And then you just keep on going around till you fill it up. Perfect. Next up, we're going to be making the horns. I actually used a couple of ice cream cones for this, and you can fill them up with candy, with chocolate. Right here, I'm actually just using buttercream, but what I like about ice cream cones is you don't have to go out and make or buy any fondant. You can just use something that you might have in the house. I usually don't place any skewers in these. I kind of just place them right on top of the cake, and then I use buttercream to seal them. But if you feel like you want them to be more structurally stable, or say you're making them for a customer, I would definitely add something in there. So once you get your horn symmetrical, you're just going to start drawing lines of, I'm using chocolate buttercream, but whatever color you're making your horns, you can just start covering your ice cream cones. I actually really like how this looks not smoothed out. I just kind of covered it and it looks kind of like a branch. I think it looks real cool. I was thinking about keeping it that way, but I do end up smoothing these horns just for a different effect. What I like to see is people be creative, so if you have a different idea, definitely try it out. Little branches coming off is just me pulling some lines out of the buttercream. I just like leaving a tip. It makes it look nice and organic, kind of like branches. Alright, here's where things get fun. Now, this particular cake I did not airbrush enough. I feel like I could have used a lot of darker tones, but this was the first time I ever tried making my own airbrush sprays. And what we did is we distilled some colored food gel with vodka, and it made a sprayable color. And what I like to do, usually I'll start with lighter colors, so I use some orange, some ivory, and some brown. Most of where I'm airbrushing is just the creases, so where the cheekbone is, underneath where the eyebrows and the eyes. I just wanted to give it a little bit more dimension, and that's what the airbrush does. It kind of highlights the parts that you want. Alright, and then once I have a good majority of it airbrushed to how I like, I just add on a couple more thorns or horns onto my dragon. I think this just really ties together the horns on top of the head. It like brings the color, draws it out throughout the cake. And there we have it, our completed buttercream dragon cake. This one was so fun to make, and I had so many people asking how I made it, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or anything, just leave them in the comments below and I'll be able to get to you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!